I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in brilliant, searing light. The moment when, amidst the clamor of a family dinner, my wife's parents sneered at me, belittling every ounce of my hard work and claiming I was never good enough. In those first 100 heartbeats, their condescending words crashed over me like a tidal wave, leaving me breathless with humiliation and defiance. Their contempt cut deep, carving a wound that I swore would never heal. And now, years later, as fate would have it, they're the ones on their knees, begging me for financial help. I simply said, no. That decision marked the beginning of my journey, a journey of reclaiming my dignity, rewriting my future, and finally proving that true worth can never be measured by someone else's narrow eyes. I was raised with the constant reminder that hard work and integrity mattered more than inherited wealth. I worked tirelessly to build a modest, honest life, one where I could provide for my family and carve out a space for myself in a world that often seemed to favor the privileged. Yet, from the very beginning, my in-laws made it clear that they saw me as an interloper, someone who was never quite good enough to join their world. Their dismissive glances, the subtle, cutting remarks at every gathering, and the way they spoke about me behind closed doors always stung. I vividly remember family gatherings where they would compare my humble achievements to the lavish lifestyles they had grown up with. They never missed an opportunity to remind me that I was just not their type, that my background, my job, and even my dreams were all far beneath what they considered acceptable. For years I did my best to prove myself. I worked extra hours at my modest job, saved diligently, and even pursued further education in hopes of elevating my status. I wanted to bridge the gap between their world and mine, to show them that I was capable, worthy, and determined. But no matter how hard I tried, their scorn never wavered. Every family reunion, every celebratory dinner, was laced with undercurrents of judgment. Their disdain was not overt, it was a quiet, persistent reminder of my perceived inadequacies. It felt like I was always one step behind, a shadow in the bright light of their accomplishments. Their constant dismissal planted a seed of insecurity in me, one that I struggled to uproot, even as I built my life with painstaking determination. Then, as if life decided to deliver a twist of cosmic irony, the roles reversed dramatically. After years of looking down on me and making snide remarks about my humble means, my in-laws found themselves in dire straits. A series of unfortunate events, a downturn in their business, mounting debts and personal misfortunes, left them financially unstable and desperate. Suddenly, the very people who had once treated me with disdain were on their knees, pleading for my help. I received frantic phone calls and worried messages from them, begging me to loan them money, to help them out of their financial crisis. Their tone was desperate, their pride shattered, and their once cold dismissals had turned into tearful requests for assistance. The news hit me like a double-edged sword. I was stunned that those same people who had looked down on me for my modest earnings were now forced to confront their own vulnerabilities. Yet, as I listened to their pleas, I felt a quiet sense of vindication rising within me. I had spent years struggling, working hard, and silently enduring their judgment. Now, as they begged for help, I had the power to say no. I had built my life, my savings, and my future on my own terms, and I wasn't about to let my hard-earned security be exploited by those who had never respected me. In the weeks that followed, I oscillated between conflicting emotions. There was a part of me that felt a deep, lingering sadness for the family ties that had once seemed unbreakable. I recalled moments from my childhood when I idolized my in-laws, admired their success, and longed to be a part of that world. I remembered the way they used to welcome me at family dinners with warm smiles and high expectations. But as I revisited those memories, I also saw how the passage of time had transformed those relationships into something unrecognizable. A cold, transactional connection defined by superficial judgments and unfulfilled expectations. I spent many long nights alone, sifting through old photographs and mementos, trying to reconcile the image of a once loving family with the harsh reality of their present behavior. In the quiet darkness, my thoughts swirled like a maelstrom, anger, betrayal, and an emerging sense of self-worth that I had long suppressed. I began to write, pouring out every raw emotion into a journal. I documented my memories, my pain, and slowly, the beginnings of a plan to reclaim my dignity. My writing became a cathartic outlet, a place where I could vent, reflect, and ultimately begin to rebuild the parts of me that had been diminished by years of condescension. The transformation was not immediate, but it was inevitable. I started to observe subtle changes in myself. I became more assertive in conversations, less willing to tolerate passive-aggressive remarks, and more determined to stand up for what I believed in. I set boundaries with those who had once undermined me, and gradually I began to carve out a space where my worth was not up for debate. I reminded myself that my savings, my career, my very identity were built on sweat and determination, not on the shallow opinions of those who had always measured me by an unfair yardstick. I also turned to professional advice to manage the growing complexity of the situation. I met with financial advisors who helped me understand the implications of my in-laws' pleas for money. They explained that while I had every right to safeguard my assets, there was also a delicate balance in maintaining familial relationships. I spent hours discussing my options, whether to lend, how much to lend, and how to protect myself legally. Each conversation reinforced my resolve. I was not obligated to sacrifice my future for those who had never truly valued me. The more I learned, the more I recognized that my financial independence was not just a means of survival, it was a testament to my self-worth. I had built my savings through years of hard work, and now, with the tables turned, I had the power to choose whether to support those who had once looked down on me. Parallel to these practical considerations, my emotional healing continued at a measured pace. I reconnected with old friends, people who had known me before my life was clouded by the expectations of others, and we spent long, unguarded evenings discussing our dreams, our disappointments, and the lessons we had learned from life's inevitable hardships. Their unwavering support was a balm to my wounded pride. In their eyes, I saw the reflection of a person who had always been capable, even if the world around me had tried to convince me otherwise. Those conversations sparked in me a quiet determination to rebuild my future, not as a victim of circumstance, but as a resilient, independent individual. Every step of this journey was a slow reclamation of my identity. I started to prioritize my own needs, physically, emotionally, and professionally. I adopted a rigorous routine that balanced exercise, work, and self-reflection. Mornings were devoted to long runs that cleared my head and reaffirmed my resolve. Afternoons were spent immersed in work, pouring my energy into projects that reinforced my professional value. Evenings became sacred time for journaling and quiet contemplation. With each passing day, the sting of that humiliating work dinner began to dull, replaced by a steady, unshakable sense of self-worth that I had fought so hard to rebuild. I also took bold steps to redefine my future independently. I began researching new investment opportunities and ways to further grow my financial security. I met with legal experts to ensure that any support I might provide in the future would not jeopardize the hard-earned stability I had worked so long to secure. My savings, which had once been a shared pool, were now a symbol of my independence, a fortress against any future betrayal. I even started to plan for a modest new home, a personal haven where I could fully embrace the freedom of living life on my own terms. As the weeks turned into months, I observed a subtle but profound shift in my inner world. The bitterness that had once defined my thoughts gradually gave way to a calm resolve. I began to see my past not as a series of scars that would always haunt me, but as a foundation upon which I could build a more authentic, empowered self. Every conversation with a friend, every meeting with a financial advisor, every solitary walk under the morning sky served as a reminder that I was more than the sum of my past betrayals. I was a man who had weathered the worst, who had transformed pain into purpose, and who was now determined to create a future that was unequivocally my own. One day, after a particularly long and reflective run through the city's quiet streets, I paused at a familiar park bench. The crisp air filled my lungs as I sat down and looked up at the slowly brightening sky. In that moment of stillness, I allowed myself to truly acknowledge the journey I had undertaken, the anguish, the growth, and the steady march toward self-reclamation. I realized that I had not only survived the betrayal but had emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. The overwhelming hurt had given way to a profound clarity. My life was no longer defined by what had been taken from me, but by what I had managed to reclaim through sheer determination and inner strength. That realization ignited a renewed fire in me. I became more intentional in every action I took, from the professional strategies I developed at work to the personal goals I set for my future. I envisioned a life where I was not only financially secure but also emotionally fulfilled. A life where the dreams of my past were reimagined and transformed into new, vibrant aspirations. I started to draft detailed plans for expanding my business, exploring new markets, and even branching out into creative projects that had long been on the back burner. Every step was carefully calculated, every decision a statement of self-respect and independence. I also began to share my journey more openly with those around me. At intimate gatherings and low-key networking events, I spoke about my experiences, the crushing betrayal, the solitary nights of introspection, and the slow but steady process of rebuilding my life. I discovered that my vulnerability resonated with others. My story became a source of inspiration for those who, like me, had once been diminished by the actions of others. Their nods of understanding and shared stories of resilience bolstered my resolve and reaffirmed that I was not alone in this journey. Together, we celebrated our small victories and learned to see each setback as an opportunity for growth, a chance to reaffirm our intrinsic worth. Every day as I continued along this long, arduous path, I felt the emerging realization that my future was entirely in my hands. The painful memories of that work dinner, of being introduced as just a friend, in a room full of influential people, were gradually becoming a distant echo. They no longer held the power to define me. Instead, they served as a stark reminder of how far I had come, how much I had grown, and how much more I was capable of achieving when I refused to be diminished by someone else's shallow judgment. I invested in new ventures, not out of a desire for revenge, but out of a burning need to create a future that was defined by my own efforts. I diversified my investments, took on new responsibilities at work, and even began mentoring young professionals who had faced similar betrayals. Every success, every small victory reinforced my belief that I had reclaimed my life, piece by piece, moment by moment. The financial security I had built became a testament to my foresight, and every positive update was a counterpoint to the dismissive remarks of the past. As I navigated this complex journey of rebuilding, I also allowed myself to dream freely. I envisioned a future where I could travel, explore new creative outlets, and live in a home that reflected the person I had become. I began researching properties in neighborhoods that resonated with my evolving sense of self, imagining a space where every corner told a story of resilience and rebirth. I planned to create an environment that was not just physically beautiful but emotionally nourishing, a sanctuary where I could celebrate my successes and continue to grow without the burdens of past betrayals. Throughout these months, I maintained a disciplined routine that balanced professional ambition, financial planning, and personal healing. Mornings were dedicated to physical renewal, running, meditating, and setting daily intentions. Afternoons were consumed by work, strategic planning, and hard-fought negotiations that pushed me to redefine what success looked like. Evenings were reserved for introspection, a time to write in my journal, read inspirational books, or simply sit in silence and reflect on the progress I was making. Every part of my day was an affirmation that I was rebuilding my life on my own terms, that my future was no longer at the mercy of someone else's decisions, but was a canvas that I could paint with bold, unapologetic strokes. Slowly, I began to see the fruits of my labor materialize. My business was stabilizing, new contracts were being signed, and the once dim prospects of my future were now illuminated by the tangible results of my hard work. Every meeting that ended with a firm handshake, every nod of approval from a colleague, was a testament to the fact that I was not defined by a single moment of humiliation, but by the relentless pursuit of my dreams. My financial stability grew steadily, and with each positive update, I felt a surge of pride, a quiet, unspoken victory against the betrayal that had once threatened to break me. In the midst of this transformation, I also reconnected with the essence of who I was long before the weight of shared dreams had obscured my individuality. I reached out to old friends, re-established bonds that had been weakened over time, and welcomed new relationships built on mutual respect and authenticity. I discovered that true connection is not forged through shared responsibilities or superficial accolades, but through honest, heartfelt communication and the willingness to stand by one another through life's darkest moments. Their support was a constant reminder that my value was inherent and that my journey of reinvention was both personal and universal, a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever been diminished by betrayal. As the days turned into months and the winter gave way to the tentative light of spring, I began to see a clear vision of my future emerging from the ashes of the past. I drafted long-term plans that encompassed every facet of my new life: professional ambitions, financial goals, creative projects, and personal relationships. I began to explore new opportunities with a sense of excitement and optimism, confident that the future I was building was one that was defined solely by my own choices. Every challenge I faced, every obstacle overcome, was a stepping stone leading me closer to a life of autonomy, success, and genuine fulfillment. Looking back, I realized that every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of pain was a necessary part of the journey. They were the raw materials from which I built my new self, a man who had transformed betrayal into the very fuel for his resurgence. My path was long and winding, marked by both setbacks and triumphs, but it was also a testament to the incredible resilience of the human spirit. I had learned that even when life seems determined to break you, you have the power to rise, rebuild, and reclaim your destiny. And so, as I stand now on the brink of a new era, a future bright with possibility and unburdened by the ghosts of betrayal, I know that every step I have taken has led me to this moment of profound transformation. I have reclaimed my identity, re-established my financial security, and reconnected with the truth of my own worth. I am no longer defined by a single humiliating moment, nor by the shallow judgments of those who once looked down on me. Instead, I have forged a future that is entirely my own, a life built on hard-won lessons, unyielding determination, and the unshakable belief that I am enough. Each day is now a testament to the power of resilience, a celebration of the fact that from the ashes of betrayal, a new and glorious beginning can indeed rise.